In the remote highlands of Oaxaca, the morning sun painted golden strokes across the cracked earth. The village of San Miguel lay quiet, its silence disturbed only by the chirping of birds and the distant bark of a stray dog. Life here moved slowly, as if the mountains themselves guarded time with heavy hands. Dona Mariana, a woman of 50 with eyes as fierce as the desert sun, stood before her modest clay house. Her hands, rough and calloused, clutched a worn basket filled with maize. Behind her, a boy of 12 peered out from the doorway. His name was Luisito. Small for his age, but his eyes burned with a hunger that had nothing to do with food. Every morning, Mariana walked 2 hours to the nearest market. She would sell her tortillas and return before sunset. But today, something lingered in the wind. A stillness. A whisper of change. As she adjusted the shawl on her shoulders, her neighbor, Abuela Rosa, approached with a frown creasing her ancient face. "You heard the news?" Rosa muttered. "They say a new school is opening in the city. For children like your Luisito." Mariana didn't respond. She only looked at her son, who was now crouching near a patch of marigolds, tracing his finger along the dry earth. A school meant opportunity. A school meant leaving. And Mariana knew, deep in her bones, that if Luisito left the village, he might never come back. But she also knew that if he stayed, he would become like all the men here, broken by the land, forgotten by the world. The silence of the mountains held its breath. That night, while the candles flickered against the clay walls of their home, Mariana pulled out a folded piece of paper from beneath her mattress. It was an old flyer. She had kept it for years. It spoke of scholarships, of free education for gifted children in Ciudad de Mexico. Luisito did not know how far she had already planned. He only knew that when his mother looked at him that evening, her eyes glistened with something he had never seen before. It was not sadness. It was farewell. The morning after the whisper of change, Dona Mariana sat at the corner of her wooden table, pen gripped tightly in her hand. Her Spanish was simple, but her words were chosen with precision. She wrote slowly, carefully, as though every letter carried the weight of her son's future. "Dear Fundación Esperanza," she began, "my name is Mariana Gomez. I am the mother of Luis Antonio Gomez, 12 years of age. We live in the village of San Miguel, Oaxaca. My son is bright. He reads by candlelight, teaches the younger ones in the village, and asks questions about the stars." She paused, staring out at the mountains, then continued. "I do not have much to offer you. I sell tortillas at the market. But I know what my son can become, if given a chance. Please, let him show you." She folded the paper and placed it in an envelope she had saved from a wedding invitation years ago. With a trembling hand, she lit a candle and sealed the envelope with wax. Luisito watched her from the doorway. "Who is it for, Mama?" he asked, brushing dust from his sleeves. "For someone who can help you," she replied, not meeting his eyes. 2 days later, she handed the letter to a passing merchant on his way to the city. He promised to post it once he arrived. Every morning after that, Luisito ran to the old tree near the church where mail, if it ever came, was left in a rusted box nailed to the bark. Days turned into weeks. The silence of the tree matched the silence of the mountains. But then, one afternoon, he found an envelope. Thin, white, and foreign. He rushed home, nearly tripping over the stones in his path. When Mariana opened it, her lips parted, but no sound escaped. Luisito held his breath. "You've been accepted," she whispered. In that moment, the silence shattered. The kitchen was filled with the scent of wood smoke and boiling beans. Luisito sat in silence as Mariana stared at the letter. She read it again and again, as though the ink might vanish if she blinked. "You will leave in 3 weeks," she said quietly. "A representative from the foundation will collect you from the nearest town." Luisito's fingers tightened around his spoon. "And you? Will you come too?" Mariana shook her head slowly. "No. I belong to the mountains." That night, he couldn't sleep. He stared at the ceiling, listening to the rhythm of crickets and the occasional cough from his mother's room. The walls of their house were thin. He could hear her crying, softly, as though apologizing to the night. The days passed quickly. Neighbors came to offer blessings and farewells.
Some were kind.
Others were not. City boys forget their roots, one muttered. He'll never come back, said another. Luisito wanted to scream at them. He didn't want to forget. He didn't want to leave. And yet he had to. The night before he left, Mariana gave him a small cloth pouch. Inside was a photo. Her, holding him as a baby, both wrapped in a rebozo. There was also a folded napkin with her handwriting. Remember who you are. Luisito didn't cry until she tied his shoelaces for the last time. The journey to the city took 11 hours. Luisito had never seen so many cars. So many lights. The streets of Ciudad de Mexico buzzed with movement, noise, and people who didn't make eye contact. The representative from the foundation was a woman named Clara. She was kind but distant. She guided Luisito through the tall metal gates of the boarding school like one might guide a guest through a museum. His room had a real bed, a desk, bookshelves. Warm water came from the tap. Luisito stared at everything, overwhelmed. Your lessons start tomorrow, Clara said. Rest well.
He didn't sleep.
In the morning, children his age and older filled the classrooms.
They spoke fast.
They wore polished shoes. Luisito, in his hand-sewn shirt, felt the weight of difference. The lessons were hard. The words harder. He understood but slowly. The other boys laughed at his accent, at his silence. At night, he sat by the window and held the pouch his mother gave him. And then he began to write. Every night, Luisito wrote a letter to his mother. He described the lessons, the smell of the city, the boy who called him Mountain Ghost, the teacher who said he had potential. He poured his thoughts into paper, but he never sent them. They were folded one by one and tucked under his mattress. He feared that if his mother read the truth, the loneliness, the shame, the fear, she might tell him to return. And he couldn't. Not yet. Weeks became months. His Spanish grew sharper. He answered questions in class. He stayed behind to help the teachers. The boy who once mocked him asked for help with arithmetic. Luisito nodded. But he never forgot. Not the hills. Not the marigolds. Not the woman who sold tortillas to buy him books. It was a cold Thursday when the fire started. No one knew how. But within minutes, smoke filled the corridors. Alarms rang. Students screamed. Luisito had been in the library, reading a book on constellations. He saw the flames first. As everyone fled, he turned back. An old man, the school janitor, was trapped under a fallen beam. Luisito didn't think. He lifted. He pulled. He screamed. And when the doors burst open and the firefighters rushed in, they found him holding the old man's hand. His palms were burnt, his clothes black with ash. But he was alive. And so was the janitor. A week later, Luisito was called to the assembly hall. He stood in front of hundreds of students, his hand bandaged, his eyes wide. The headmaster pinned a small silver medal to his uniform. For courage, he said. The applause was thunderous. That night, Clara visited his dormitory. You could have died, she said quietly. Luisito looked down. But someone needed help. She smiled. It was the first time he saw her smile fully. I've sent a letter to your mother, she said. Luisito's heart stopped. One morning, the security guard called Luisito to the front gate. She stood there, wrapped in a faded shawl, sandals covered in dust, her eyes searching. Mama. He ran to her, arms tight, face buried in her shoulder. They didn't speak for a long time. When they finally sat on the stone bench by the school gardens, she took his hands. You are taller, she whispered, but you still look like my little boy. Luisito told her everything. Everything he hadn't written. She listened, then said, I always knew you were meant for more. Mariana stayed 3 days. They visited the city markets, the museums, the parks. Luisito showed her his classroom, his books, his medal. On the final night, she said, when you are finished here, will you come back? He didn't answer. The silence was different this time. It was filled with the weight of choice. I don't know, he finally said. Mariana smiled softly. It's all right. Just carry me in your heart. Years later, Luisito stood at the front of a large auditorium, speaking to hundreds of students. He was now a teacher, a writer, a mentor. He told them of a village named San Miguel, of a mother who walked to market, of letters never sent, and stars once studied by candlelight. When the applause ended, he walked outside. The sky above was vast, painted with the colors of dusk. He looked up, then closed his eyes, and whispered, "Thank you, Mama." Far away, in a small house beneath the mountains, a candle flickered in the window, and did not go out.